Hello, I am Gideon Billings from the Drop Lab at the University of Michigan, and I am presenting my work on SilhoNet-Fisheye, a method for adapting region of interest-based object pose estimation networks to work on full fisheye and omnidirectional imagery. Fisheye and omnidirectional cameras are gaining more attention in robotics applications due to the large field of view compared to their prospective counterparts. These images illustrate that even a relatively wide 90-degree field of view perspective image captures significantly less information about the scene compared to the 180-degree field of view fisheye image. However, extreme distortions in fisheye and omnidirectional images significantly reduce the performance of directly processing the images through a convolutional network. While attention has been given to the problem of object detection in full fisheye images, little work has been done on 6D object pose estimation. The problem of pose estimation is particularly challenging in the presence of distortions due to the large appearance ambiguities depending on the camera relative translation of the object. Previous methods of dealing with omnidirectional distortions can be roughly categorized under three approaches: generating multiple perspective projections from the sphere, such as a cube map, and processing each projection separately through the network, adapting the kernel sampling locations based on a spherical distortion model or a learned mapping, or sampling the spherical image based on a uniform sampling geometry or graph, such as the isosahedron, and processing the spherical representation with specialized convolutions or operations in the spectral domain. Methods like the cube map that operate on multiple perspective projections suffer from feature discontinuity at the borders. Methods that operate on a graph generally do not scale efficiently and are typically rotation invariant in the convolution response function, which is undesirable for object pose estimation. Most closely related to our work are the methods that resample the convolution kernel locations based on a spherical distortion map. However, these methods have not been demonstrated for the problem of 6D pose estimation. The first contribution of this work is a framework to adapt region of interest-based convolution networks for 6D object pose estimation to work on full fisheye images. This adaptation is demonstrated on our previously published SilhoNet method for object pose estimation from perspective monocular images. The second contribution of this work is an annotated fisheye dataset for pose estimation, which addresses the lack of large-scale annotated fisheye or omnidirectional datasets. Further, this dataset was collected in natural seafloor environments, where it is generally difficult and expensive to gather data, enabling the development and testing of deep learning methods for the visually challenging underwater domain. In this work, we assume a fisheye camera following the equidistant projection model, though the method generalizes to any projection model that can be mapped to a sphere. To deal with the visual ambiguity induced by the distortions, we first map the image to the unit sphere, where f is the camera focal length, x and y are the coordinates of a pixel on the fisheye image, and theta and phi are the polar coordinates of the corresponding pixel on the sphere. We then define the apparent viewpoint as the gnomonic projection from the sphere onto the object's centered tangent plane. This gnomonic projection is core to our method of regressing the object's 6D pose from the region of interest proposals on the distorted fisheye image. The orientation of the object is regressed relative to the apparent viewpoint, and then a rotation correction is applied to recover the true orientation relative to the spherical coordinate system. Given a spherically mapped image with the sphere coordinate system coincident with the fisheye camera frame, and an object in the scene with rotation r and translation defined by x, y, and z relative to the spherical coordinate system, the apparent viewpoint is represented as a virtual perspective camera with optical axis rotated to intersect the center of the object. The intersection of the virtual optical axis with the sphere in polar coordinates is theta naught and phi naught, which can be calculated from the object translation. A rotation adjustment matrix can then be constructed column-wise using the coordinates of the rotated virtual camera frame axes in the spherical coordinate system. The orientation of the object is regressed relative to this virtual optical axis, and the true orientation can be recovered using the rotation adjustment matrix. This framework assumes the translation is regressed independently of the orientation, which is typical in pose estimation networks, and the regressed translation is used to recover the true orientation. We compare three different variants of the SilhoNet network, adapted for processing full fisheye images, with all variants regressing the apparent orientation as described previously. The first variant is the baseline, where the images are processed through the vanilla SilhoNet network, without any special consideration of the image distortions in the network pipeline. The second, projective variant, extracts features on the raw fisheye images and then projects the features within the region of interest through a spherical mapping to the region of interest centered tangent plane. These projected features are then processed through the rest of the network. The motivating idea for this projective strategy is that local features do not visually appear heavily distorted in the fisheye images, but the spatial relationship of features across the region of interest can be significantly distorted. The third perspective method projects a region of the fisheye image to a virtual perspective image centered on the region of interest. This virtual image is then processed through the network pipeline. As a further comparison point, we also replace the silhouette prediction branch in each of these three variants with a branch that directly regresses the quaternion orientation rather than first predicting a silhouette and passing it to a second stage network. We refer to these methods as the direct version of each variant. We analyzed the performance of these methods on an annotated underwater fisheye dataset we collected with an ROV on the seafloor of the Costa Rica shelf break. The dataset is composed of manipulator wrist-mounted camera images of three different graspable handles in various arrangements, with April tags spread throughout the scene to provide robust ground truth poses of the imaging camera. There were four main steps involved in the collection of this annotated dataset, which we call UW handles. First, an April tag detection method runs directly on the raw fisheye images. A calibrated fisheye model is then used to estimate a pose for each tag detection. Second, the detected tag poses are fed into a SLAM method, which produces a globally consistent camera pose for each image frame in the sequence. Third, object models are fit into the image sequence using a custom annotation tool we call VisPose to recover the object poses. Fourth and finally, the image sequence can be exported with the object pose and bounding box annotations. The VisPose annotation tool is also released as open source with this dataset. This image sequence is a sample from the dataset, showing the tag detections in the raw fisheye images and the SLAM estimated tag and camera poses. Here, the annotations are visualized by projecting the object models into the image using the SLAM estimated poses, and the 2D regions of interest are also displayed. For visualization, the fisheye images are center rectified in this sequence. This table shows the translation prediction accuracy for the three different network variants, along with their direct method equivalents, where a higher percentage under a lower threshold error means better accuracy. Considering the sub 5 cm error column, the perspective variant significantly outperforms the baseline, while the projective variant shows some improvement. All of the direct methods show significant degradation in performance compared to the methods that regress an intermediate silhouette representation, indicating that even though the silhouettes are not directly used in the translation prediction branch, they enhance the network's ability to learn feature scaling. This table shows the orientation prediction accuracy. Again, the perspective variant outperforms the baseline by a significant margin, and the projective method does not perform as well. However, the direct variants perform significantly better than the methods that regress the intermediate silhouette for orientation prediction, in contrast to the translation performance. This observation motivates further investigation as to whether silhouette predictions should only be used to supervise the learning of feature scaling. Exploring the use of simulated data to increase the number of viewpoint representations while training the silhouette regression branch could also improve performance. Finally, we present a performance comparison of the full 6 degree of freedom pose predictions using the symmetry-agnostic average distance metric first introduced in the post-CNN paper. Results are shown for each of the three different handle objects, as well as the overall average. Because this metric gives greater weight to translation accuracy over orientation, the methods that use the intermediate silhouette predictions perform the best, with the perspective method performing best overall. These results indicate that accounting for image distortions before processing through feature extraction is the most effective method in dealing with fisheye imagery. Here, we visualize the predictions from the perspective variant on a sample sequence from the test set. It is evident that the silhouette predictions suffer from some noise and distortions, which may be improved with more training data, further motivating investigation into the use of simulated data to augment the training set. In conclusion, we have proposed a framework for adapting existing object pose estimation networks to work on full fisheye images with minimal modification to the existing network architecture. We also present a new underwater object detection and pose estimation dataset with monocular fisheye images. Further investigation will include the generation of realistic simulated underwater fisheye imagery to improve the pose estimation performance and reduce the need for expensive underwater data collection in the future. We also plan to incorporate the SilhoNet-Fisheye method into an underwater manipulator camera system for object detection and grasping. Please reach out with any questions, and thank you for your attention.